Hey folks, welcome to the Market Internal Review for June 20th, 2023. So after having Monday off, we've had our open session today. Started off with a large gap down on the SPY here and showing some weakness with tick average closures under zero and some extreme bearish breaks to the low side of almost negative 1,000. In the beginning of the day, we had somewhat of a middle ground on the ad in the VOLD, showing overall though a bearish band on both the ad and the VOLD. Ad a little bit more severely here with it being so bright. We did see at the open a TRIN imbalance. However, that dissipated until later in the morning session. Seeing the double test of the TWAP on the session here, followed up by the breakdown of the first standard deviation low. This was my short entry signal right about here, where we had the initial break, a retest, and then another break. I did cover this recently in a new video regarding how to use TWAP to find intraday trades. So this here was a successful trade. It was pretty nice. Now, one thing I noticed is we had a bearish tick move here, then we had a new bearish tick move down here. So this is a large move. You can see we're riding the second deviation low down here. We didn't make it to the third, but the thing I'm noticing is we had the tick low break here and then the tick low break here. This is a large move to make a new low in agreement with tick. Now, that being said, the previous day's range is way up high. It is my experience that almost always there'll be a gap test at some point, which we did have a gap about here. So being as this was two extreme moves, we already started at a lower price from last session with this gap down. I'm expecting some kind of a retest just based on pure price action, not based on market internal. So I managed to get out with some good profits on this scalp, and I'm remaining cautious. I think I got out of the remainder somewhere around here with this strong recovery of the second or first deviation. Now, roughly into the afternoon lunch session, I started to see this here. So we've got an extreme bullish break on SPY, which made a new high intraday here after a higher low. So we've got low, higher low, and a new interim high. So I'm starting to consider that we've recovered the normal distribution nearest to the mean, and potentially we're looking for a bit of upside. So then I start seeing this. We've got a potential bullish reversal on the ad. Still nothing on the volume side by this point. But now I'm seeing average tick closures over zero. And I've seen two extremes hit on either side now. And I'm starting to consider perhaps we're going to oscillate around here. This is something that is typical also after a holiday weekend. The first day or the first couple days after the holiday tend to just not present cleaner opportunities, but then again, they still can. So I'm just being mindful, being a little careful. There's also some more economic news being announced tomorrow with the Fed, I believe. So just keeping all that in mind, we have this gap up here, and I'm watching the internal. So as I see some of this reaction on the downside on tick at 1208, I'm noticing that it does not make a new low. So we had this low, then we had this low. Now we've got this one. So it's also not as strong as these guys over here. Okay, so now we get this reclaim of TWAP here, and I'm thinking gap test. So average closures over zero, strong tick moves that are continuing to make higher highs, and a bullish continuation here on the trend, the 20 SMA trend for the ad. So it's good entry would be to risk off of here and slightly below and see if we can't reclaim this upper deviation and maybe even higher, given that we've got this gap range. As I've said in other videos, I like to look for 50% lines on gaps. So this would have been somewhat of a target. Also in my other video, I said I like to use the previous session's TWAP, standard deviation ending prices. So that would be some of these lines over here. This one here at 438.30, almost to the cent, was tested right here. Okay, so this is showing a little bit of the power of that particular strategy and having those levels on your chart. So we hit that, but we rejected it. Now there was a high break here, not as strong. I like to see them up in this area, the 900 to 1,000 range on tick. We did not get that. We're also still, we have to be cognizant we're still red on the add and the VOLD for the internals. So even though we're seeing this pop on the indice, we're still not seeing that same sentiment shift on the entirety of the New York Stock Exchange. So you got to be real cautious when you see this kind of move. We did have a trend reversal and even volume flipped for a little bit, but you can see we started to lose clean action on the price after this nice clean move up. See how these bars are all stacked up? They're not really coming and retracing the prior candle a whole lot. Strong candle here, but then once we get here, it all falls apart. So this is really weak price action. You don't want to be stuck trading this. Okay, then we test this 438 level, which I had from the previous session TWAP, standard deviation. Then we lose the current session's first standard deviation zone. We retest it one more time before we just fizzle out. We start to see weakness in the add. The VOLD flips full bearish again, and we're basically just oscillating for the rest of the day. I mean, this is just chopping up anybody that's trying to scalp this. This is not clean price action. We're above the TWAP, but we're not really doing anything. And we did tap almost 50% of this gap. So all that being said, today was definitely a little less providing of opportunities, but you know, you gotta take what you can take. Let's turn the tick levels on here. Okay, tick levels counted roughly the same kind of highs and the lows that I pointed out. It doesn't reprint if it's within a certain percentage of the previous levels. Yeah, we got this one here. Okay, and there was that one. So if I turn my drawings off here, we turn off session TWAP. Okay, so look. Oh wow. These levels here continue to amaze me. Perfectly just staying within these two levels. So if you were bearish, you'd want to see a break in of this level here and target down here, right? And the price action, the candles are not clean. Maybe this right here, but you've got minutes left for the session. It's not really worth it. This was a nice strong candle compared to a lot of these other ones, save for the morning open session, right? These are really strong candles. I like to see these. These are good continuation follow through. These let me know I'm in a good position. This kind of junk here, this is garbage. You don't want to be in this. So this one here is a good strong candle. It's taking out a lot of this prior range and price action. It's clearing that. That's good, right? Then you can close out some here or here. So that was a good trade. We had a couple good trades, one short one and one long one for the day, and that's it. So that's interesting. Let's go look at the Qs. Okay, Qs looks almost identical. Very similar price, very similar tick levels. We've got just a hair difference in the morning session. We have a little bit stronger rip that actually does, okay, that's fascinating. It does actually close up the majority of this gap. So we oscillated 50% of this gap for actually the majority of the day, because this was very brief in comparison to the rest of the session. This is about a third of the session. 2/3 of the session we spent right inside this gap. So that's interesting. Let's look at the session TWAP. Yeah, just oscillating right around the standard deviation zone, right around the mean, which is a statistical common thing, right? That's what the standard deviation says, so shouldn't be surprised. Let's look at Dow. I imagine Dow's probably really weak today. Yep, very flat. And we'll look at Russ. Did Russ have a pop today? Nope. Did test the gap range a little bit. Actually, let's look at Dow again real quick. Dow didn't even test the gap. Down bar here, so opens up here. We didn't even retrace into the gap at all. So Q's, I guess, relatively a little bit stronger. Did I draw my gap correctly on SPY? Okay, so actually SPY's gap should be down here, and that 50% line should be somewhere more about here. So we did retrace, not quite 50% of the way in. Yeah, my assessment's still roughly the same for SPY. We spent some time in there. All right, let's go look at the internals, raw charts, tick. Pretty much MIT showed us everything we need to know. We have some low breaks here, which we already knew. Oscillation. See that 8 SMA is just oscillating back and forth. This is, even though we had a trend imbalance, and we had a couple of decent moves that were lengthier and cleaner, the add and the VOLD, and you'll see it here in a minute, were somewhat at a divergence. So just not as much of a believer that trend was right today with the potential imbalance call out. And also, just because it calls out an imbalance doesn't mean that we're going to see a nice long trending rip of a move. We've got a very low VIX right now, so we're just not going to see the follow through that we are used to seeing from a strong bull or bear market. Okay, yeah, so here's trend today. Insane fat candle, data catching up with the measurements here. We break into an insane bearish, extreme bearish, potentially oversold type move here, staying above the 20 SMA until about 11:30. Then we're under the entire time, save for a couple of little pops here. So this is a confusing, anytime I see this, it's kind of a confusing day where the price action just doesn't really align with the sentiment. Things are kind of slow, melty kind of moves. People will say, this is kind of what I notice. It's almost like it went too hard too fast, and the whole market just wasn't ready to accept that move. Okay, here's the ad. See, here's what I mean. So the ad didn't sell off. It's not showing a weak New York Stock Exchange from my experience. Now the balance is at 0, yes, but it's mainly sideways today. It didn't even hit the bearish zone. So I'm not going to say this is skewed, but it's just not bearish. It's not necessarily neutral balance, and it's not bullish. So what is it? It's kind of just sideways garbage. We never really did anything today. We did have a slight move up. So this is probably roughly about when SPY started to see a retracement up back into the standard deviation TWAP area. And then this is probably about where we just fizzled sideways. So what is that, 10:56 to 2 p.m.? 10:56 to 2 p.m. So we'll go look at that here in a minute. And the VOLD. Okay, VOLD was surprising. Here we go again with this incredibly bearish volume into the declining entirety set of stocks in the New York Stock Exchange. We spent the majority of the day under 20 SMA, save for a brief moment of pops. So this is interesting. So we've got a divergence, like I said, where the ad is flat mostly, and the VOLD is incredibly bearish. Absolute bearishness. There's no question about it. So now we go back to SPY, and what do we see? We see mostly neutral. We essentially landed on the same price that we started. So as I've said in past videos, if the SPY does not match the volume, there could be quite a nice move, depending on how you look at it, the following day. It's not a guarantee, but that's what I've observed. I've had some pretty good call-outs on this channel with what to expect in the coming day. So I would certainly make use of the data that is available to you with MIT or the raw charts, whatever you want to use. You don't have to use any of these indicators, but I would definitely implore you to take a look at the internals throughout the day. And I think every day, we'll come in with one idea based on the previous closed session set of data on the internals, but then we got to play the day as it comes. So who knows what happens overnight with futures, news, data release, etc. But I'm going to come in expecting some kind of larger, cleaner type move, right? I don't know if it's going to be a cleaner ripper kind of day like this. But maybe something more like this, but to the downside perhaps. I'm not sure. So SPY's looking relatively, I hate to use the word strong compared to the volume, but that's kind of where I'm leaning. But overall, I just think this retracement of this gap, the fact that it didn't happen, maybe could set us up for more downside. That being said, we didn't see that with Qs. Qs kind of tried and filled this gap, but then we lost it, only to finish above that 50% line. So maybe we're going to see, unfortunately, some more divergence between SPY and Qs, which I really hate. I don't like it when tech is fighting the S&P 500. It's really annoying. Let's look here real quick at the monthly. Let's look at the monthly TWAP. I bet you we're back in first deviation. I haven't checked today. Oh, okay, so we dipped back in the first deviation, and look at that. The deviation on the monthly TWAP is flat now, practically. Interesting. So this could be signaling effectively the top on a monthly. Maybe that's the monthly high here. And so now, if that's the monthly high, what is that, 443? I think a lot of people would agree with me that by the end of June, we might not see a higher price than that. Not sure. But if that's the monthly high, right, where's the low for the month? Is it back at the opening price? I doubt it. Or rather, I doubt that we would see that price again. So I think the chances are pretty good that our low is down here. That's the low for the monthly for the monthly candle for June. So if that's the case, then we've got a high price, we've got a low price, we've got an open price. Where's the close price going to be? So 416 is our low. We've got our open. Our high is 443. So maybe, I don't know, it seems kind of plausible that maybe we could land as low as 431 for our closing price on the month. We'd spend a lot of time getting there, or we have a lot of time to get there rather. Yeah, I guess stay tuned. We'll just have to see. But that's pretty interesting. Qs, I bet, is probably oh no, Qs is a little stronger. Okay, so Qs probably, we need to see more weakness in Qs for SPY to go back to around 431, I believe. But it's basically flat on the deviations, the monthly, and so is SPY. I think it's plausible that we at least hit about 50% of this deviation zone, which would be a 434. That's really not that far away on SPY. That's what, $3. Yeah, that's a $3 move. That's easy. But who knows? The bulls could come back and we could just see a brand new high being made. So stay safe out there. I don't have anything else right now, but I'll be making a video tomorrow, most likely, for more internal reviews. Yeah, thank you for watching, and happy trading.